So a few days ago, I posted something on LinkedIn where I had found my old modern refrigeration book from 1997. That's when I started my HVAC journey in high school. And in my post, I mentioned that I had a bone to pick, not necessarily with the book itself, but with how it's used in HVAC education. Because when I was coming up, that book was the basis of the curriculum. And my high school teacher, as well as my college instructor, started on chapter 1 on week 1. And chapter 1 in that book goes immediately into some really deep topics, really deep mathematical formulas that I said is not needed for a technician and an installer to get a job in HVAC. And I had a lot of people that agreed with me, and I had more than just a few that disagreed with me. And I started looking at the comments, and I realized that the ones that disagreed with me were mostly an older generation. That's how they learned. They started with that basis of formulas. And then people about my age or younger, people maybe doing HVAC less than 25 years, expressed that they had a similar experience as a student, that they really were lost the first few weeks, didn't really know how any of this stuff made sense. And it would have been much better to have flipped the order in which HVAC was taught to them and start off with more hands-on things and then get to the formulas later on. And that's the point that I was trying to make. As mentors and educators, anybody that produces content needs to be in tune to how people learn now. And if we're tone deaf, if we just say, well, the way I learned was the best way and that's just what people need to do now, that's obsolete thinking. And I will unapologetically criticize that all day long. Because I struggled as an average student to understand these things, and I didn't understand them until later on after I had field experience. And so that's why in the content that I produce, even in the Udemy course, I don't start out with mathematical formulas. I start out with what you already know. So if we're going to talk about the 3 states of matter, if we're going to talk about latent heat of vaporization and superheat and subcooling, we don't start out with those formulas and try to make the student memorize them. We start talking about things they already know. We equate it to boiling water. Everybody's boiled water before. And once we understand why water boils at a certain temperature, but then you take it at another altitude and it boils at a different temperature, now you can start tying that back in to those original formulas. But that takes time. Students are also different now than they were years ago because they're less mechanically inclined. We are starting out deeper back on the football field and still trying to score a touchdown. And there are a finite number of hours in any HVAC course. 40-something years ago, when a lot of these older techs that were criticized in my post started, they were coming into high school or tech school with already a mechanical basis because they grew up working with tools. They grew up working with their mom and dad, fixing things around the house, fixing their bike, fixing their car. Anything that you had to buy at the store and assemble, it needed real tools. Now, young people getting into this trade are not mechanically inclined, usually. Of course, there's exceptions. And so we have to start with a different basis than we did 40-something years ago. So the purpose of this little rant is, if you are in the HVAC education space, even if you're just a content producer like I am, I take my cell phone out and I make stupid little videos and cringy memes to try to educate people and raise awareness. Even if you're just doing that, keep in mind how people learned and how people learn now versus how they learned maybe when you were coming up. And try to stay current. Because if we don't, we're going to lose the few people that are still interested in the trades that we have left. And that would be a tragedy.